This is poster presentation from Alsop 13957 for performance analysis and research in coaching. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this presentation on understanding elite athlete wellbeing as a performance enabler, taking an ecological systems and holistic development perspective. Thank you for joining us. My name is Aaron Alsop. I'm the researcher putting this poster presentation together. My background was actually as an elite athlete when I then transitioned into coaching, which then brought me to the opportunity to work as a practitioner and administrator running high performance systems and national sports institutes across the Asia Pacific region. Currently, my work exists in the Solomon Islands, establishing the high performance program for 30 different national sporting bodies and running the National High Performance Sports Institute. This question of understanding elite athlete wellbeing as a performance enabler will unpack a bit further through this presentation. But what you can see here in these little icons at the bottom of the screen is what we've identified through the existing literature as 9 different wellbeing domains that have been discussed through a range of different existing research, which we will discuss now. So, why elite athlete wellbeing? Brings us to this question that we need to better understand what elite athlete wellbeing is and creating some clarity around that term. We also, need to understand how athlete wellbeing can actually lead to better performance. And how do we recognize that when athletes are thriving and flourishing, that there's a direct correlation there to support performance? The other part of the question is when we look at athlete well-being, we have to understand that we're looking at the whole person and that the whole person fits within the ecological system of elite sport. So better understanding how the athlete fits into that overall ecological system and taking a holistic development perspective allows us to look at the athlete as a whole person, like we mentioned before. Those 9 icons, there's a range of different wellbeing domains that needs to be explored. And how do we take that bit deeper into understanding the balance between those 9 different wellbeing domains as the person, the whole person, operates within the ecological system of elite sport. There's significant justification for this research, given that the contemporary issue that we see elite athlete well-being in elite sport right now across the world. What we also know is that there's a significant amount of investment being made into elite athlete well-being services, and better understanding what elite athlete would be for the individual, but also then the system would create great value to ensure that those investments are made in the right areas. The contribution towards the body of knowledge that this research would also provide would support the systems approach that needs to be taken to best work with those individuals at both a micro and a macro level, and ensuring that the contribution of the knowledge supports that whole person wellbeing approach. Pretty significant topic at the moment, and it's best to understand through validating these questions through some research. So what does the existing literature tell us now? In terms of understanding athlete well-being, there's been significant research around the concept of a person that's either languishing or flourishing. So you can see the well-being continuum. This is a visual representation of number of the discussions and findings that researchers have found around this paradigm between which direction a person is moving in. Are they moving towards their whole person potential? Are they flourishing, or are they languishing in their own personal well-being? The perspective of which then is looked at from a performance enabler. And what we understand is that there's significant research that has identified the relationship between the coach talking about different aspects of technical or tactical elements that leads to performance, and ultimately the results driven or medal driven targets that are given to elite sport. However, there hasn't been a lot of that discussion yet taken from the perspective of what if athletes are flourishing and thriving, and linking that to what performance enabler could be. So rather than it being about a specific strategy per se that is seen in traditional coaching or elite sports systems, we're actually taking it from more of a human perspective, understanding elite athlete well-being, where's the athlete fit on this paradigm, and then linking that to relationship with the performance. The other part of the literature that it talks about is there's a lot of inconsistencies in the holistic well-being definitions, language and terms that is being used, and particularly research is done from a very individual well-being domain perspective. So what we've found is that there's never been consistency in the language and terms or definition provided for well-being, which therefore means it's very difficult for us to be able to compare and analyze across all of the literature that's found to get some consistency and have an alignment in the findings that has been found in existing literature. So the opportunity to research and understand holistic well-being across those 9 individual well-being domains that have been done in isolation, but hasn't ever been sort of looked at collectively through research. That presents a really great opportunity to understand how do we take these different key elements of elite athlete well-being and potentially provide support to fill the gap that's been found in the existing literature. So let's discuss a bit further about the research design process. What's been identified is 2 clear stages within the research process. The first stage is a typical mixed method approach where we're going to identify and select a focus group of subject matter experts on well-being, conduct some semi-structured interviews with that focus group where we gain further insight from the research into applied settings, which will then formulate a survey that we will use with the focus group to get their perspective on the wellbeing domains that have been discussed earlier. This will then help us develop a truly holistic wellbeing definition and model, which will then also support the measurement tool that we can use to identify athletes who are either flourishing and thriving or languishing. The second stage is also a mixed method approach where we're really now taking that initial work out of stage 1 and putting it into an elite ecological approach. So taking a focus group of subject matter experts on well-being and performance so that we're getting both areas of expertise in the focus group, and presenting to them a questionnaire that they will complete, which discusses a range of performance factors and identifying where well-being sits into those performance factors. Then gathering that data, doing some analysis, and then structuring the interview questions around that data to gain further insight, to gain clarity and a perspective for us to be able to then formulate a position of where, as an elite sports system, identifies the priority of well-being as a performance enabler. Conducting this mixed method approach will actually allow us to give some further qualitative responses, which will provide a lot more depth and explanation or rationale that perhaps the questionnaire doesn't truly provide. And that ensures us that it's more of a robust process to get the outcome that we're looking for in terms of understanding elite athlete well-being as a performance enabler. So just to wrap up, a few summary points from this small presentation around our research question this morning has really highlighted why we think it's necessary that this research is conducted. Well-being is a highly contemporary issue in elite sport at the moment. We understand that through the literature research that we had done, and seeing that the continual growth in the investment into this area has become pretty significant. What we know through the current research is that there is a significant place within elite sport for athlete well-being. However, we understand that there's a real lack of clarity and consistency about how we understand elite athlete well-being, both theoretically and practically. So being clear on what a definition and model is around elite athlete well-being, but then also how it's practically delivered through services to support athletes in their performance environments is quite critical. We also understand that there is a link there that the evidence has shown and people have discussed about how it can enable performance. But in order to have clarity on what elite athlete well-being is, we need to see how that's linked then to performance. So we get to a position of what we call both and. Can we get well-being and performance so that both can be achieved? We want athletes to be thriving and flourishing, but the organisation also wants performance. So there's two competing outcomes here, and we think that this research can actually show that both can be achieved. Obviously, the contribution that it can make at an ecological level is quite significant, highly valued from the perspective that through the investment being made in elite athlete wellbeing, if we can help sport organisations and those that run the high performance system better understand what elite athlete wellbeing is, but also support the people like the coaches and practitioners that work within those environments to better understand the outcomes that elite athlete wellbeing can have on performance, will actually have quite a across whole systems approach to getting a better outcome. And lastly, it's pretty important that it gives a voice to the interdisciplinary nature of what elite athlete development looks like. We need to understand, like we said before, that we can achieve both. And this research could help support those practitioners that work in different interdisciplinary perspectives to be able to understand holistically how we support athletes through their development process. So it's quite significant and necessary research to undertake to support athletes reaching their whole person potential. I would just like to thank everyone for listening in and being a part of this presentation this morning. I've provided my contact details there for the purposes of anyone that's requiring further information that's been presented today, or if they would like references to anything that we have discussed this morning through existing literature research that has been done in order to prepare for this presentation. Thank you very much and appreciate your time.